Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I am Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs, Grant Ramey, and Austin Price. Big thank you, as always, to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions, the #1 spot for roofing, siding, garage, windows, whatever the case may be. Exterior Home Solutions can help you. Pick up the phone today. They'll give you a free estimate by dialing 865-524-5888, or you can visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Got a ton of questions to get into today here on the Mailbag Podcast, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into it. This is from Ligma Vols 14. If Harrison Ffrench commits, do we say no to Cam Sparks? Austin Price.
Well, I mean, I think Tennessee's already moved on from Cam Sparks. And we've talked about that on the board in the Monday Night Chat. Like, Cam Sparks, they can't come to Tennessee right now. Like, maybe if Tennessee misses on a bunch of guys and has a nice senior season, they may circle back around to him. But at that point, he may not want Tennessee to circle back around. I mean, Tennessee just kind of went in a different direction. And that's the easiest way to put it. And so, barring a change, as we said here near the end of May, that marriage does not look like it will happen.
Brent Hubbs, any early information on the Smokey Grays for this year?
No, I don't have. I've not seen them. The initial response from them was that they weren't necessarily beloved by the first couple of people that saw the design, but I don't know what the finished product looks like on those. AP, have you seen a finished product? Have you had a sneak peek of an unveil on a Smokey Gray?
I have not, but yeah. Much like you.
Now I'll say this: there have been uniform things in the past where people were like, "Those don't. That's not going to fly." Then when they get the whole uniform assembled and on somebody, they look better than they have in the past. So we'll see what that one looks like. Here's my thing on the Smokey Gray. I mean, I don't know that you're making, Grant, a ton of merchandise sales off that. I would almost rather that just be another either wear a traditional home during the day, or if it's a night game, just wear the black uniform. I'm cool with the black being the only alternative uniform instead of the Smokey Gray.
Yeah, but I think they've already taken it away once, or went away from it once, and I think people wanted it back during the Pruitt years when he just wanted to wear orange and white. I don't know. I think the original was a pretty good place to start, and then when you try to modify that every year, like I was a fan of the 2023 version. I know a lot of people weren't, but I like the way they.
I was too.
I guess Austin Price was not based on that facial expression.
They weren't.
But I like the way they tied back to Condredge Hall. I thought that was cool. I thought it was a good mix of old school, new school.
I like the fact that they were paying a tribute there, but let's pay tribute with those beautiful, beautiful things they wore to open the 04 season against UNLV. If we're going to pay a tribute to Condredge Holloway, let's get back to those white jerseys with the orange smock on top. If we're gonna give our kudos to Condredge Holloway and throwback, let's do a throwback. We've already seen that. That's a great jersey. I would be fine if that jersey was a road jersey, like regularly. I love that jersey they wore in 04 to kick off the year on Labor Day night against UNLV.
Those were good. Those were good.
Really good. I was a big fan of those.
I think every now and then, if you want to use it as a true alternate, that'd be fine. But boy, those every single week on the road, I don't know about that. Favorite non-conference game you covered outside of Knoxville in any sports? Grant, I'll go first, then let's go to Grant. I'll say Pittsburgh just because of everything that came with that trip. Travel was amazing. Because of Austin Price, the hotel was amazing. Went to a Pirates game, and that was awesome. So for me, it doesn't have to go too long ago. It was the Pittsburgh trip in 2022.
Sadly, during my time, there haven't been a ton of non-conference marquee since 2012 football trips. Oklahoma in 2014 was fun, but obviously that's no longer in the non-conference category. Pittsburgh was a lot of fun in 2022. I had no idea what was coming after that game. Basketball, the best trip in basketball is November preseason NIT, because your team plays on Wednesday. You get an off day in New York City for Thanksgiving Thursday, and then you play again on Friday, and then you go home Saturday. It's a really fun week. And obviously the Maui Invitational. It takes forever to get out there. It's a haul, but man, it's fun.
Yeah,
Brent,
the best trip.
I was going to say, Brent, I know this isn't non-conference, but 2022 LSU, me and AP had fun. We went down to Bourbon Street, had a time. No, we just walked. I just wanted to see
that trip from a work standpoint was god awful.
True.
That was that trip. My phone didn't work unless I had Wi-Fi. So when we drove from Baton Rouge to New Orleans for an hour and a half, I had nothing. And for people that don't know me, like my phone, I edit all the videos on the phone. I do everything on my phone. So to not be able to have access to it was driving me wild.
It was like that for you in Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, but it went out for like 2 hours and then came back on the way to Fox Chapel. This was gone the whole weekend. When I got back, I had to go to Verizon. It was a total fiasco.
But Brett, we were on Bourbon Street, and of course we had AP was a celebrity down there on Bourbon Street too.
Let me use your phone.
The first trip to South Bend was really cool.
What year was that for you, Hubs?
That would have been
47.
Casey Clausen 01.
No, Grant's right. It was 47. No, it was it was Casey Clausen 01. That's the first time that I was up there, because I wasn't up there for the Miracle, and Tennessee played at home against them in '99. That trip was cool because I'd never seen that campus, and that's one of the few times that we got set up early enough that I went and walked around to see things, honestly, that I'd seen in the movie Rudy, right? Like I wanted to go to the various spots that stood out in that movie. So that was pretty cool. 05 LSU was a horrible setup. It was brutal, but for Tennessee to win and get out of there with that was a memorable trip. I wouldn't call it a great trip, but a memorable trip. I was most disappointed in the Orange Bowl for all of my growing up with, Don Crickey and calling Orange Bowl games. And man, there's the mystique of the Orange Bowl. Not so much. And other than the sunset, I mean, I didn't get a chance to shop at the flea market and the thrift stands around the Rose Bowl. But other than the sunset, it does nothing for me as well. So those two were disappointing. To spend 10 days in Tempe, Arizona, to cover a national championship game was obviously an unbelievable experience. The next year it was really cold out there, but that 10 days in '98 was a lot of fun. Played some golf, and you had a lot of free time in addition to covering a national championship game because you were out there so long. It was so spread out.
Yeah, Notre Dame in 05, even though Tennessee lost that game, Samardzija had a big game. That was a really fun trip. So that was me, Bryce, James Clausen, and we flew into Chicago, rode the train over to Notre Dame, and on the train was this kid, and he's making balloon animals for everybody, and it's Tennessee balloons and Notre Dame balloons, and he's doing it, and there's a little leprechaun, and there's a dog, Smokey Dog, and all this, and I'm like, okay, this is cool, right? We're on this train. Fast forward, 8 months later, I'm outside of Wrigley in Chicago again. There's that same kid making Braves and Cubs balloons, and I was like, I remember you from I was like, what are the odds that I see the same kid making the same balloon animals? What a racket! All these years later, and who knows where that kid is? But all of a sudden, that was neat.
I stopped in South Bend in 2009 on a baseball trip, and we were walking around the stadium, and we found a janitor, and he was right near the gate, and we called him over. We said, "Buddy, we'll go buy you a 24-pack of beer if you let us in." And we went and got him beer, and we came back, and he took us everywhere. I mean, wow. we were slapping the play like a champion sign. We were in the locker room, standing up on a stool, doing the Rudy speech. Also, that LSU. Yeah, I was recreating on the field, Rudy. That LSU trip, 2022? Yeah. This is my dad in a nutshell. He drove to LSU.
Yep.
And it's a 11 a.m. kickoff, and I go see him in the third or fourth quarter when it's very lopsided and Tennessee fans are having fun. And I told my dad, I said, I got the Marriott app. Just let me know wherever you stop. I'll get you something booked. It'll be pretty good rate. Never heard from him. I got all the way back to wherever we were staying. I can't even remember. Called him the next day. He's like, yeah, I got in about 5 o'clock. He drove from Baton Rouge to Kingsport, Tennessee, straight shot.
Wow.
My best as a student would have been to Georgia in 04.
That was a good game.
Brett Smith, Eric Ainge. I hung out of James Mitsubishi Xterra. I hung out the window singing Rocky Top, and Georgia fans were throwing potatoes and heads of lettuce at the Mitsubishi.
That was
So-
a game where
You can
Tennessee
imagine
won,
how obnoxious I was.
You can't believe it, right? That was the game where Tennessee won like 51-39 or something. Didn't
No,
Tennessee
that-
like return a punt?
No, this was
6.
Eric Ainge. This was Eric Ainge as a freshman
Okay.
beating Georgia down there.
That
Georgia
was crushing David Pollock and David Green in their final game against the Vols.
and the week before, Georgia had just dominated LSU in Athens.
Tennessee had gotten dominated by Auburn.
Okay.
Yeah. Two quick ones. I know we got to go, but or to the next question.
One question, man.
I still have another question from this one because it's really good. I mean, we're going to spend half the punt.
That's okay. It's fine. It's. I mean, it's May, right? We asked for topics. You just gave us a topic and a question.
Yeah.
So back to that Notre Dame trip. The highlight of that, other than seeing all the spots around campus, was Tennessee stayed in Michigan City, Indiana, and I think that's actually where the famous Peyton Manning bet on 18 blackjack story from his days at the Colts story came from. But anyway, we stayed there, with McAfee. We stayed there and we took a bus ride. It was like an hour bus ride over on game day. And I'm sitting in the back of this bus and I'm sitting at a little table there and I'm backwards to the road. My back's facing the road. And I'm sitting with Gus Manning and Haywood Harris. And it was an hour and 15 minutes of history stories of talking about, Majors losing to Paul Horning and all of those things and nailing stories. It was the best hour and 15-minute live documentary you've ever been a part of in your absolute entire life. So that was the other highlight of that trip. In 95, I went and saw the streak end. I rode with Mike Keith. We had Saturday Sports Talk at Modern Supply on Level Road. We drove down. We covered Tennessee and Alabama and Birmingham in 95, where Peyton had the naked bootleg. We got back in the car afterwards. We drove back to Knoxville, got to Knoxville about 6 a.m. Mike had to go do TV. I had to do a radio 30-minute sports cast at like 8:30. And on the way in, Mike will get mad for me telling this story. Mike called the control room at WIVK in his best Bobby Denton voice and got the DJ to play a Shania Twain song 4 times in a row. And the DJ thought it was Bobby every time. Just kept playing Shania Twain. So whoever was driving home or driving somewhere at 5:15 in the morning going, why is the CD sticking on that deal? They're just hitting replay on that bad boy for some Shania Twain just out of fun because it was 5 o'clock. We were tired, bored, and trying to get home.
That's amazing. And it's also just goes to show you, it wasn't that long ago when there were overnight board ops at local radio stations. Last one here from our first poster, because again, they're really good. And I actually did this as a topic on one of my shows last week. Top 5 wide receivers since 2010. And we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I researched it and kind of came up, and here are the 5 names I came up with. Jalin Hyatt, Juwan Jennings, Justin Hunter, Cedric Tillman, and Derek Rogers, just because of what they did throughout their careers, all that type of stuff. Of course, Hyatt had that 1 year. Josh Malone, Denarius Moore, the tail end of his career. Of course, Cordero Patterson had that 1 year as well. Those are the 5 names I came with from the 2010 to now range. Hyatt, Jennings, Hunter, Tillman, Rogers. Would you guys replace any of those and add somebody else?
I would take Rogers off that list.
Me too.
And I would put.
I know he didn't end here, but
I would put Malone on that. I guess Josh Malone probably would make that list over Rogers for me. With that one, just off the top, just going off of the names that you mentioned there, I don't think there's. I mean, Cordero Patterson was as talented as anybody. They just, one, he didn't understand routes, and 2, they didn't always get him the ball in the best plays. Am I missing Grant and Austin? Am I missing somebody? The first 3 really good with Lane.
The first 3 names that Eric mentioned were the first 3 names that came to mind when I read that question the first time. So I got no complaints with it.
Oh. All right, we'll move on. 14 minutes in. That was a loaded 4 questions there. I liked it. They were all good. Let's go to Rockytopmojo. Of all the high school football stadiums you've been to, which are your favorite 3 to visit? Austin, you want to start this one off?
I loved Maryville when they had the trees. It's not the same without the trees in the end zone. there's something. I can name a bunch, to be honest with you. There's something about. I love the way Ray County just sits down in Bradley Central. I'm gonna go way over 3. So like, you have to understand, like, there are ones I really like going to.
I like Bradley Central.
I think Bradley Central's fantastic. It's like Farragut Beard, like that does nothing for me. Like, it's just kind of
because we're there 2 times a year every year.
It's just okay. Like, I don't think there's anything special about it. Like, it's just okay. I love Gatlinburg Pittman. I think Gatlinburg Pittman is fantastic. We've not done a game at Northview, but I'd like to do one up there. I think the way it sits up on the hill with the mountains in the distance is pretty neat. Again, there's a lot of them that I enjoy going to. And so, like, I don't think there's I like halls. I like that it's all on one side. Yep. I love that they did checkerboards on the turf. I've not been to Gibbs since they flipped it around hub, so I can't answer that one. But
it took an Olympic year. It took 4 years to get it done. It was like the Olympics, waiting on the Olympics. They built stadiums to.
It was adult Legos, right?
Yeah, it was adult
Legos. Even though the press box was janitor's closet, I liked the old way it was. I liked Gibbs. Like, there was again, I look for character. There was character to that stadium. There's character at halls. For some, not so much. I like Carter. I like the way it sits up back against that creek. In the old days, before they put turf in, man, if it rained, if it sprinkled, or somebody spit on the field, buddy,
it was a mud bog, man.
Yep.
I'll never forget.
It looked like the ending to The Best of Times with Robin Williams and Reno Hightower.
Before they moved it to turf, I watched Austin East play GP one night. I was shooting highlights for VLT, and GP predominantly white, AE predominantly black, and the field was so bad you couldn't tell who was who except for the color of the helmets. GP had yellow helmets and AE had red, and that was it. You couldn't tell who was who. I'm telling you, it was, if you'd flipped them, you would have never known. Like, it was wild how much mud was on the field that night. And GP had them beat and scored with like 30 seconds to go, and I'm walking out, and they kicked it off, and the kid from AE ran all the way back, and I just hear it. Just a faint, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man! I think they beat GP like 2 or 3 times like that, where they just kind of stole one, right? Late in the game, and so there's a lot of cool high school stadiums. Coalfield, Oneida, Greenback.
I was going to say
small schools,
and this, AP, because I beg for it every single year. I love going to the small schools. I just talk about character, talk about environment. I love that, and so anytime we go to Coalfield, Oliver Springs, anywhere like that, I love it. I'm glad you brought up Austin East. That was the first time I'd done a game there this past year. It's a home game for me, so I didn't have to travel too far. It was so hot, but that environment was awesome. I loved that game. I'd love to go back and do another game at Austin East. So a lot of good environments around the area for sure. Let's go to VolFan89. We've gotten positional grades and such this offseason, but where would you grade the strength conditioning program going into year 4? Seems like they intentionally fly under the radar. Obviously, continuity from year to year is big, but I feel like people don't often talk enough about some of the gains players like Jaylin Wright and Jalin Hyatt had, Brent Hubbs.
I think it's solid. I think it's good. Again, Grant, I'm waiting on a coach to get to his season opening press conference and go, man, our strength coach failed this summer. We had a miserable summer. We're awful. We're in terrible shape. We didn't. I think we lost muscle mass this summer. I'm not sure we lifted a weight all summer long. I'm waiting for that press conference.
Nobody's ever had all the money on that team.
Yeah, nobody's had a bad summer. I think that those guys. I think this strength staff does a good job. But I also think it's about individuals maturing and figuring out. I think Jaylin Wright and Jalin Hyatt are 2 guys who committed to it in a different way than they did early in their career, and you saw the results of that, Grant.
And it's also, if there's ever a change in the strength coach, the new guy is Drago in the laboratory, lifting with all the scientific stuff, and the old guy is Rocky in the barn, lifting rocks and throwing hay bales and lifting wagons and doing all that stuff. And I think if the player development is there, like we've seen there be player development with this staff and with this program the last few years, I think that tells you everything you need to know about your strength program. If you're not hearing a ton about it, that's great news because it's just moving along.
That is a fantastic podcast topic. Favorite strength coach in between Kurt Schmidt and Johnny Long.
No. Well, that's a 7-part documentary, man. They had like 12 of them come through here.
I know, dude. That's a great one. I'll go with Rock. Rock Gullickson, the free weights.
All right, let's go next to a really good handle, MichelobOkra. I like that a lot. Which former Vol who seemingly never reached their full potential do you think would have thrived in this offense? AP, I think I've heard you say that you'd love to see Jerry Garantano in this offense, but somebody, maybe not like JG, but someone who never really reached their full potential that could have been something with this coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, Leonard Scott. I mean,
did you say quarterback or any position?
Any position.
Any position.
I got you.
Hype loves speed. Just throwing go routes to Leonard Scott.
Yeah, he would have put up yards because they would have gotten him open for sure. I would have liked to have seen what they could have done on the outside with Cordero Patterson, if that would have been a little more simplified for him to do things, if they would have used him in a variety of different ways. I think that would have been fun. I think Alvin Kamara in this offense would have been fun.
Yes.
As well. And Grant, I think a guy like Montario Hardesty, if healthy, would have been great in this offense because it's a one cut and go guy.
John Kelly too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had this in my. It's in something that we're doing. Maybe it's in 10 things coming up later today. The fact that, I mean, they're just going to be able to run the ball. That's what this offense does. Every stop Josh Heupel's made as a coordinator or head coach, they have been really, really good running the football. Regardless.
Kamara, you mentioned Kamara. I didn't even think about him, but that is, that might be the best one. I mean, he reached as much potential as he could. I don't think it was his fault for not reaching his own potential. I got a guy, and I cannot think of his name, but it was when I was in school, so probably 06 to 08-ish, running back, super fast, number 22, had that.
Coker.
Marcus
Coker.
Yeah.
There we go. That was quick.
He could play. He could.
Ontario Smith, baby. Give me Ontario Smith in this offense.
Let's go to Big Orange 6469. What backup player on offense or defense could work their way into the starting position by season's end, Grant? I think one player that immediately comes to mind would maybe be Boo Carter at star. One of those receivers that might not be the first three out there, could be one of the first three by the season's end. Anybody else come to mind for you?
Boo was my guy. That was we're on the same wavelength today, Eric. I don't know what's going on. Boo, because you get in that secondary. Once you get in, you're not getting out. We've seen that. Once you're on the field, you're not coming off.
The Bermuda Triangle.
That's right. It's not a 3-hour tour.
So can we officially name Jaylin McCullough Amelia Earhart then? No,
I don't know.
She got stuck in the Bermuda Triangle.
All right, we got plenty more questions to get into. Let's take a quick minute to check in with our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
This is your family's first and most important line of defense against Mother Nature. When she strikes, make sure you call the people that I trust, my family and friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions.
As always, big thank you to our friends Exterior Home Solutions, #1 in roofing, siding, garage, anything you need since 1999. Give them a call today at 865-524-5888 or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Let's get back to the questions. Run Through the T says, any recruiting nuggets or thoughts moving forward on this class along with staff? I don't know what that last part means, but anyway, recruiting nuggets. Anything you got, AP?
Obviously, Tennessee picked up a commitment, on Tuesday from Anthony Ogamoro, the interior offensive lineman from Oklahoma, who's originally from Micronesia, which is the chain of islands just off the coast of Guam, which means I don't know, I can't say this for certain because I'm not Haywood or Gus, but I think he is the first Micronesian Vol, joining the other Polynesian Vols like Jesse Mahalona, Nico, and so on and so forth. As far as other news and rumors, I mean, again, not many people have set commitment dates. Travis Smith did July 13th. Charles House, June 22nd. Jalen Matthews, June 3rd. Outside of that, we'll see who makes it in this weekend, who doesn't. I'm a firm believer that you'll see David Sanders here at some point. either coming or going from the On3 event, and then it really ramps up. He goes to Clemson. He's got Alabama. He's got Ohio State, Tennessee. Be interested to see how all that works out. Georgia over the next month. But who makes it in this weekend, and then who doesn't? And I don't think that some of them have to make it in for the Tennessee to be a factor with them. But I think if you're Tennessee, you definitely love to see David Sanders get in here at some point, whether it's Saturday for A65 Live or any of the days leading up or right after the On3 event over in Nashville.
ATXVol19 has a question for me. Given the promotion of associate head coach back a couple of years for Josh Elander and the success from the team lately, what are your thoughts on another program trying to poach him come the next month or two? Also, thoughts on if Frank Anderson would join him where he ends up. Josh Elander's done a really nice job here at Tennessee, and he's done just about everything you can do without being he's even managed a couple of games when Tony Vitello's been serving a suspension or whatnot. He's run the offense. He's called pitches when Frank's been out. He's, he does base running. He does infielding. He's the hitting coach. He works with the catchers. In that same respect, he even works with the pitchers a little bit because of the catching background. So I think Elander's done pretty much everything except maybe outfield. So he's ready. I mean, he's prepared. That doesn't mean that I think he's wanting to leave. I think he can be, because you're at Tennessee, you can be patient and you can be selective and wait for your right opportunity because you've got a really, really good job here. So yes, I do think teams are going to start contacting him because he's proven and he's been a huge part of what Tennessee's been doing here. If he were to leave, do I think Frank Anderson would go with him? I personally, no. I think Frank Anderson is going to retire. I'm not saying it's going to be this summer, but I don't think he's going to be coaching much longer, and I don't think that he'd want to go start a new venture. That's just my opinion somewhere else. Let's go to VolumeShooter. From what you know right now, is NC State or Oklahoma the more dangerous game early in the season for the Vols, Brent?
NC State's getting a ton of love out there.
They are.
When you see it, they are getting they're the off-season darling, certainly of the ACC at this point in time. And I think there's a lot of unknown with them because of what they got done in the transfer portal and the way that they have the things that they have added, the pieces they have added to. But they also, Dave Doran has not been very successful against Power 5 teams outside of the ACC. He's winless against the SEC in his career at NC State. That's a neutral site game. I lean more towards Oklahoma being the challenge because it's at Oklahoma. That's their first SEC game, Grant. I'm not knocking NC State, but I think on paper when you look at it, I think the trip to Norman feels like it feels
like a much tougher game. Grant. It feels like a game that the crowd could impact it, right? Whereas in Charlotte, half the stadium is going to be orange. While it could get loud if NC State makes a play or two, Tennessee fans can drown them right back out with a positive play of their own. In Norman, you're going to have 5,000-10,000 Tennessee fans there out of an 85,000 seat stadium. It's going to be different.
And it's the first SEC game. It's what we've talked about. It's Heupel going back there. It's all that stuff that's going to be around that. And NC State, like Hubs was saying, they're up to 13th, I think, in the ESPN's post-spring top 25, which was crazy to me. 5 spots ahead of Oklahoma, a couple spots ahead of Tennessee. And I agree with AP, like, no disrespect to North Carolina State and that neutral site game being in the state of North Carolina, but Tennessee fans don't often get outnumbered in neutral site situations. The only thing there is it is a good test, and it's a little bit earlier in the season, and it's Nico just being a little bit younger than he's going to be a couple weeks later when they go to Oklahoma in terms of experience and what he's seen.
Let's go to Vols 95. Are you guys going to play NCAA 25? And if so, what team besides Tennessee are you most excited to play with? AP, I would imagine you're probably not going to play. Grant, do you have a game system to steal or something?
Of course, it's my childhood. No, Theo's not going to play that. That's you got to earn that opportunity. That's way down the line.
I don't have a game system right now. If I still had a game system, then I would certainly buy the game, but it's a lot of money. I want to play the game though, so I'm going to come over and hang out.
Can you buy it on Windows 98?
You cannot.
You're wrong.
We'll see if we can get Hubs. We can see if we get Hubs stitched up there on Windows 95.
Oh, what team are you going to play with?
I have no idea. It's always some directional state with some nickname like banana slugs or something, and you turn them into a dynasty. That's the way everybody goes. It's what you got to do.
Yeah. Let's go to OrangeCeltic. AP, are athlete name, image, and likeness deals subject to state and federal taxation? If so, would Tennessee have an advantage because no state income tax?
Yeah, they are. I mean, like, you get taxed on all that, right? So, like, a kid, it's you're going to make more money coming to Tennessee than you are USC, right? Because of California tax laws. Same thing with a lot of states. So, like, that's a real feather in Tennessee's cap. Or it also means Tennessee doesn't have to go quite as high as other schools. They can go, well, I know school X offered you, 200. We're going to offer you 150, and that 150 to that, that 200 is still far superior because of tax laws. So, it works to Tennessee's benefit, and there are several states that are like that. But you should be able to, have an impact in recruiting from an NIL standpoint just based off that.
Another NIL question from IndyVol80. I know this has always been done one way or the other, but has NIL made schools squeeze recruits for commits more of a commonplace? For example, if you commit today, your NIL package could be $100,000. If you wait, it could go down to 75.
No, because that's pay for play, and I understand that all this is pay for play, okay, but that's where you get it into a dicey situation. It's like Florida saying your signing bonus is $1 million, Jaden Rashada, and then it comes back to bite them in the rear later when they go see what they said. You're not going to do that. Now can you go, hey, we just got this other 4-star receiver. If you want to come, you can come, but it's not that deal's off the table. Yeah, that stuff's going to go on, but it's a little harder to prove more so than hey, if you don't get in at this exact moment, it's off the table.
IMissdeaniusMoore, he said, big question on the board currently right now is the most underappreciated Vol. Who are on y'all's underappreciated all Vol team? We don't have to go through it all, obviously, but Grant, I haven't given this much thought, but I did see that thread the other day, and I knew that it would be a good podcast topic. But off the top of my head, the first guy that kind of came to mind was Ryan Carl. who's the first
Ryan Carl?
Yeah.
Man,
who's the first name that comes to your mind?
Football? Oh, I don't know. I read that, and my brain always goes to basketball first, and I thought Jordan Bone. I don't have a good football answer, I don't think. AP, what's your football answer?
Omar Gaither. I thought he was really, really good, especially his last year here. And I would honestly tell you a guy like Jaylin McCullough. I get, just kind of what he was able to kind of help do. And I don't think I'd have said that 2 years ago. But
I think I answered this question on a pod last year and said Raynoch Thompson, and it was a crowd favorite. So let's go back to Raynoch Thompson. Sorry, AP, keep going.
No, you're right. Raynoch Thompson, Eric Westmoreland, because those two guys don't get nearly as much love as Al, right? Al was the heart and soul, and those guys just kind of just knocked everybody's head off and went to the next play. Al did that too, but it was just something different about Al. So I would tell you Westmoreland or Raynoch Thompson are good picks. From a basketball standpoint, I think Brandon Wharton, again, a really good player on some teams that weren't very good. Was surrounded by not a bunch of greatness. I would tell you Steve Hamer. Again, the guy that was really good on some bad teams, but and maybe the nicest human being you'll ever meet.
Yep, for sure.
Confirmed.
I'll give you one for baseball that's going to be in years to come from now, and it's a little bit different because he's had a ton of success. So it's not like a guy that's flying under the radar at all. But I feel like even this year, you're just taking advantage of it a little bit. Drew Beam. What he gives you every single weekend is not normal in college baseball, and he's done it for 3 straight years. And people get frustrated because he gives up 3 runs an inning or whatever, gives up a home run or what, he's not elite or whatever. But, what he's done throughout his career here at Tennessee just doesn't happen. So in years to come, next year, year after that or whatever, you're going to be like, man, Drew Beam was just so stable. You knew exactly what he was going to give you every single week. And if your offense scores 3 or 4 runs, typically that's enough to win you a ball game. I think he's one that it certainly comes to mind in that conversation. Let's go to Pine. He says, Hubs, your favorite mod, Gatadawg, put out his post-spring power rankings and had Tennessee at number 6 in the SEC. Is that too high, too low, or just about right? I'll give the top 6 the one in front of him. This is from Jesse earlier over there at On3, the front page. Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee. LSU's behind Tennessee. So Tennessee is in front of LSU, but still behind Ole Miss and Missouri. And AP, I feel like that's pretty consistent a lot of times where you look around, whether it's CBS Sports, ESPN. It's Ole Miss and Missouri are kind of right there in that barrier with Tennessee. Just a lot of times Tennessee comes in behind them.
Yeah, I guess for me, I just don't. It's good talking fodder for all those people to write about and for fans to talk about. I don't know. That's one thing I just do not get into. It's like, Joe Lenardi's, here's the bracketology, 343 days out.
I can assure you, people like me and Grant's got to write about it. I've got to talk about it. We love it in May. We love it.
That's great. I just don't. Seems about right. 5, 6, whatever. At the end of the day, this is going to boil down to, does Tennessee win in Norman, Oklahoma? Do they beat Florida at home? Do they beat Bama at home? They do those things, then Tennessee's going to be right there in the top 4 in the league and have a chance to go to the college football playoff in its first year as a 12-team playoff.
I think consistent is the right word, Eric, because you look at those rankings, like top 25s, and it's Georgia right around the top, and then it's Texas, and then it's Alabama at like 7, and Ole Miss and Missouri kind of top 10 as well. So I think it's not crazy low, it's not crazy high, it's kind of right in the middle.
Grants, are you aware of any potential international players Tennessee is targeting to fill a basketball roster spot or two?
I'm not, but those names usually don't surface a long way out. I don't know when that would happen over the summer at some point if they're looking to add somebody to this current class, and it's usually a pretty quickly, rapidly happening thing once that name does surface. So they're always kind of in that discussion and looking overseas and using contacts that they've used in the past. So I'm sure they're open to it, but no, I haven't heard any names.
To go back to that last question before that, Andy put out his post-spring top 25. Tennessee was 5th in the SEC in that, right? They're behind Georgia, Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Tennessee only plays one of those. And if you put Missouri, who flip-flop with Tennessee in the sense, they don't play them either. So the only team they play is they play Georgia and Alabama. So you got to win one of those two. To me, you got to win one of those two to me be in the playoff, talk. You can't. To me, I think it's tough to be in the playoff talk if you. I guess Tennessee could go 10-2 and lose to Georgia, Bama, but that means they're winning those games, which means they probably are staying ahead of you, barring some upsets, of them. So to me, you got to win one of those two if you're going to be in that playoff talk.
Bigun wants to know, was there friction on last year's baseball team more than just Chase Burns? Whether this group makes it to Omaha or not, they seem closer as a unit, but also know that winning cures a lot of sore attitudes. Absolutely. Guys, think about all the scuttlebutt last year. When was that? That was when Tennessee was 5-10 in conference play, and they were losing, and they lost to Tennessee Tech in the midweek. Didn't hear an awful lot about that stuff when Tennessee finished the year going – whatever it was, math is not my strong point, but they finished the year going 15-5 or whatever in conference games. And yeah, there were some arguments and whatnot, but 2022 when everything was gravy for Tennessee, there was stuff that went on with that team too. Nothing's ever what it seems in terms of, you're brothers, you're in a locker room, you're around each other every single day. There are going to be fights, there are going to be disagreements. But yeah, there were some things on last year's team, involving Chase Burns. I think a lot of people, in terms of what name, image, and likeness opportunities maybe from Maui that could have been out there that was misleading until they found out the truth. Just little stuff like that. But obviously Tennessee buried it. Even Chase Burns, he buried his frustrations with the staff and went on and pitched his tail off for Tennessee and helped Tennessee get to Omaha. So, yeah, there's always going to be some stuff like that. But winning does cure a lot of things, and you didn't hear an awful lot about those frustrations there towards the end of last year. Let's go to NWGAVOL. How excited are the student athletes to be in the new college football 25 game? Have you heard of any Tennessee athletes opting out from being in the game, AP? I know you asked this on Ball Club Confidential.
Yeah, the only one that I thought there was a chance would opt out was Nico, because there was some chatter about that early on. But, he's in, and he told us that on Ball Club. So I mean, I don't think anybody opted out. I think everybody's in, and I think they're all excited. They're all excited to see what their rating is. That's why I started asking, like, what's fair, and most of them gave fair, 79, 82, 84. Then like Lance Hurdy's at 95. I think they're all excited to play a game that they grew up on as kids, right? Think about it. If you're 20, that thing's been gone, 10 years? Last time you played it, you were 10, which was probably in your early days of playing video games. So I think they're all excited to see it come back and see their name on the back of a jersey and, run through the tee and go to between the hedges and all that good stuff.
It's two things. It's cashing a paycheck, and it's doing exactly what we did when we were younger and we played the game. You go in and you create yourself like you're on the game. There it is. Why would you not be excited about that?
They don't have to create themselves, though. They're already on it.
I know.
No.
That's right.
But if you're George McIntyre, you buy this game and you can create yourself, unseat Nico already, and then take off, throwing the ball to Mike Matthews.
Action 0212 wants to know if there's an official list yet for the Memorial Weekend recruiting shindig, knowing we're recording this earlier in the week, AP, but what are some names that you know of that are coming?
I just look for, LeVar Arrington the second. Let's see here. Actually, let me just pull it up. That's the easiest thing to do is just on the fly. I've got it here in front of me. So when you're looking at guys like Shady Hayward, Timothy Merritt, the safety from Alabama, you've got some commits like Ty Redmond and Dylan Lewis coming to town. You've got Jack Van Dorslayer coming to town. Todd Robinson, who's the running back from South Georgia. I think he's going to Georgia, but he's coming to town. Isaiah Campbell, if he makes it in, the defensive lineman that's been committed to Clemson, I think that's a big get. Either way, the biggest thing is, does he take visits in June? And right now, I think that's where it's headed for him.
We'll get to a couple more here before we call it quits. We'll go to Volunteer at 87. College football playoff theme. How many years does it take for a team outside the top 4 to win? Or said differently, how many years before the expansion actually impacts who wins it all? You could probably make the case that this past year, Georgia could have won it all if they were ranked, 5th, 6th, or 7th or whatever. Maybe Florida State for some people. Granted, it does feel like for so many years at the 14 playoff, it was like, okay, it's still lopsided in the semifinal rounds anyway, so why would you expand it to 12? But good point, this past year, Georgia, I would have probably picked Georgia to win it all because Georgia was good. How would you answer that?
I think it could happen however many months from now when they play the playoff because of that point that's made in the question. If Georgia had a spot in it last year, Georgia very well could have won it. I don't know why it would take a few years to get to that point. It feels like we've been having these debates about who deserves to be in and who doesn't, and when you have those debates, it's because you think there's a team out there that didn't get a spot that could have won it, and I think that could happen in year 1. It could happen in year 5. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on the candidates for those 12 spots each season.
Out the door, we'll end on this question. Austin Price, for you, are you confident that William Minge is going to be a dogged recruiter in this league?
I think the jury's still out. I think he's capable. But again, I think, recruiting in this league is different than recruiting out west. It's more competitive, and I think he's just got to have more time. I don't think you can judge him off his first 5 months being here.
A lot of great questions today, some that we didn't get to because we spent about 14 minutes on the first one. But, hey, they were fun. This was a fun, engaging topics here on today's show, so appreciate that as always. We'll come back. Of course, we'll have a podcast next Tuesday. We'll have your mailbag next Thursday. Plenty of coverage from Hoover throughout the rest of the weekend and recruiting coverage, all that and more right here. Chaz Lanier updates as well continued on throughout the week at Volquest.com. Big thanks as always to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions. If you have a need, they'll give you a free estimate by calling 865-524-5888. You can also visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. They've been local and trusted since 1999. For Brent Hubbs, Grant Ramey, Austin Price.
Elsa. He's Elsa.
I was trying to be y'all were being so professional. I was just sitting there like, Hubbs, are you lost?
I was not being professional.
I thought I did good, just picking up and running with it.
You did, because I wanted to comment on his face, but
then at the end, you can call him Elsa. Bro.
All right, for Brent Hubbs for about 28 minutes. Grant Ramey, Austin Price, I'm Eric Kane. Thank you as always for joining us here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast.